I know I've been out for a while, but just getting back into it. So let's get straight into the conversation, right? It's about coming to terms with us. So I'm going to take it different ways. So just bear with me, right? And we're going to go straight into it because I really don't like when people go in and they circle around me even before they get into the main topic. So coming to terms with yourself, right? And I've been thinking about this because I've been noticing the dissonance, right? The shift or like the break between how other people think and how intuitives, INFJs, uh, introverts, how they think versus their battle with how society conforms us to think, right? So what I mean by that is by nature we are internal, right? So if we go through some stuff, if we go through some issues, let's say a friend of yours promises, hey, we're going to go out to dinner, we haven't been out in a while, and she comes or he comes away, he comes too from being away for a long time, and you guys have been the one conversing. This is not happening to me, but I'm just giving an example, off the rip, off the cuff, just making an example. And let's just say, for example, that person decides, hey, I haven't been in contact with anyone, so I'm going to give my energy, to this individual because that's who I'm interacting with, right? And it's been a while since I've been home, and it's happened to me before where I've gone home and I'm sort of just dealing with one individual because I'm getting ready, reminiscing, and just trying to, in my mind, sort of get myself accustomed to how it's going to be when I arrive, because I'm very visual, right? And I'm sure a lot of you are. So we sort of tend to visualize and work through things in our minds before things happen. And that's why sometimes we can be so depressed, or we can become down when things don't come, or disappointed rather, when things don't go our way, because we've spent so much time in our head trying to visualize, right, the process. But let's just say now they come, and you've, again, in your mind, you've put so much effort into this individual, and now this individual ends up by chance, because social media or through whatever, making contact with someone else. Now when you're now supposed to hang out with that person, remember that person promised, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, they end up ditching you, and you end up feeling now even more disappointed because that person has taken that day, okay, even though they may be apologetic, but they're like, oh, I'm going to go out with this person instead, maybe because they find that person more appealing, or maybe because they kicked it off, whatever the case may be. But all in all, you were placed in the back seat. So now what do you do now? You now internalize this thing, right? You go, you do your research, because again, that's who we are by nature. We do the research, we try to figure out the whys. You come across the wrong individuals, right? On two sides. You'll have those who then comfort you, tell you it's okay, and sort of like live in that misery of space with you, right? Not really providing you any context, any perspective to sort of allow you to remove yourself from there. You don't want to be with those folks, or at least for too long. Okay, it's always good to have that, but you want to, at the end, you want to find resolve, right? And then you have the others, on the other hand, where they're just like, oh, you don't need them as a friend, don't worry about it. They're not really into you. Just move on. But again, we can't just do that. We said, why can't you? Because that's not who we are by nature. And that's one of the problems that we battle. Because we, again, that dissonance of, we are internal. We resolve things internally. We do research. We think about stuff. But then when we go to someone else, that person says, don't worry about it. But that's how they operate. That's how they thrive. That's how they cope with societal issues, emotional issues. They may not even, express emotion. They're just like, whatever. And they're able to just, go through life, skipping through whatever issues that may that happen to them. But on the outside, when it's time then for them, when it's time for them to comfort and console and give other people advice, or even to be a little bit more empathetic, they may not be able to do so because they haven't practiced that, right? So it's having to come to terms with it. But again, sideswiping, again, being in that middle space is okay. Well, you have to understand those folks as well. You can't just dismiss them. You can't be like, oh, well, they're so hard. They're just the extroverts. They're the SE types. They're the TE types, or whatever, TI folks, and they just don't get me and they'll never get me. Well, no, you have to appreciate what they bring to the table. You see what I'm saying to you? Because they will be able to offer you information and a perspective after you have resolved internally by going through your comfort space, right? Again, there's 3 elements here. You're going through that comfort zone where you need to feel, consoled and comforted. It's like, no, I've been hurt. I just want you to feel me and understand me. Fine. Then you move on, okay, to that other space of like, hey, dude, like at the end of the day, you need to just move on. Like that person didn't really care about you. I don't really have time to discuss and give you perspective. Just know that you need to move on because we don't have time to, be emotional about this. Then you move on to someone like me and others, okay, I'm not the only one, obviously, but others who are compassionate, who can understand, who can then, we can thrive in all of these spaces. So that's why a lot of the times when I'm on forums or when I'm involved with people who are introverted, I will give them that space, right? I will comfort them. I will be like, hey, listen. But then if they're not progressing, right? If they're not moving towards resolve, if they're not trying to say, okay, I've got that. Now that I figured out the whys, because then I'll also provide them, in the middle space, that why. Here's why they did that. Because this is the kind of personality, they don't do this. It's not that they did it like this, but because they came in and, there's a preconditioned blur, right? Of where you think things are going to happen. You go through life, you go through experiences, and let's say you set up a party. This is all related. You set up a party or you set up an evening with folks, and you think it's going to go one way, but then you realize, now people, after they eat, after they drink, they're going to be tired and no one's going to really want to go out anymore. So it just becomes one of those things, right? So it happens where you have to understand that people come in, and when they actually get closer, they start making new contacts, and then people start pulling them all over the place. Now they have to say, okay, well, I may not be able to see this person, or, I really want to have fun, or this person's really going through it, and this person's always going to be there for me. So you have to be able to put your mindset and not always dwell in the why did they do that to me. Yes, right? It's like, oh man, I can't believe, like, what is it about me? And then you move on. Okay, then what is it? Probably because, even though she's whatever. And then you may get to that space, well, yeah, she probably was just using me because I was the only person around. So therefore, because I was the only person, they were using that as validation, right? Oh, I'm coming home. At least someone is going to be accepting me. It's going to be receptive to my coming home. But then now they realize other people are acceptive. Oh, okay, then I'll just now put this person aside because they may not mean as much to me from that point of view. And then now okay, fine. That's the deal. I may not want to be so close with them. But you have to come to terms with that. You have to be okay with that. You have to go through all of that. Most people don't have the time. They don't have the capacity. Most people who are very extroverted, they were like, why are you wasting your time on thinking, doing all that mental gymnastics? Because that's who we are. That's who you've come to appreciate. That's why when you come to us, we can explain to you, that's why that happened. That's why this is going to happen. And that's why I will refuse to do that. Give you a prime example. I was away for a couple weeks on vacation, right? This is all related. I was away for a couple weeks vacation, and it was just busy, nonstop, 12-hour work days, and we really didn't get a chance to go out, right? It was just coming home, working, coming home, barely had time to go out for lunch. Like we had to bring our own lunch or order out and then have the folks bring the food in, barely. So finally we decided, okay, hey, after all of this, we're gonna take the opportunity to all of us go out right before we go into head back home our separate ways, we're gonna spend the night at the hotel, which is in the airport. We're gonna have dinner, then we're gonna go out, sightsee the city, and then come back, and then in the morning we'll take our flights. The problem, though, with that, right, is that I knew that there was a possibility that wouldn't happen. Number one, because I was the only one in my section, right? So although I was the only one, I participated because of my job as a logistics specialist. I oversee all of the different sections, but I'm the only one within my section who came for this work evolution. So I didn't have like my peers. I had like my associates, but we don't really see each other throughout the regular, days of work because they're in totally different sections. Some people are in different buildings, whatever. So I know that they have a better bond with each other. So they're the ones who created this, right? They were like, yeah, we're going to do this, whatever. And I was like, all right, fine, cool. But at the same time, I was like, I don't know, because I don't know if I want to go out there. And I know, because we see the future. I know for a fact that chances are these type of people, they're not going to want to do it. They're going to probably eat dinner and then they're going to just collapse and then they're going to go back to your rooms. Now, we would have spent all this money, like $200, $300 on a hotel room, another $75 at the restaurant per person. That's what, $350 for a night, again, like senselessly, right? And you're really not going to do anything. You're just wasting, right? Just why? And I was like, man, I'm not going to do it, right? I said I would, but then I was like, nah, I'm not going to do it. The old INFJ way. Yeah, I'm going to do it, but nah, I'm not going to do it because you know. Then, but obviously because we had to, there were two modes to get, right? There were two groups. One, you can, because we all booked our flights simultaneously, but there were different points that people were actually leaving because we're so many of us, right? And so we were taking taxis, taking buses, and all that stuff. And then you had to monitor the bus or the bus routes, whatever. And so I decided that I'm gonna take the early bus, and then instead of having, because we didn't know when we were gonna actually end this project, so I decided that I was going to take the later flight. So I decided then to take the earlier flight because I was like, I'm not going to do what they're going to do. So I decided to take that early bus. And then come to find out, they're on that early bus. And I'm like, oh, I thought you guys were going to, no, they decided, to take an earlier flight. All right, cool, whatever. So they're going to leave in the afternoon while I'm leaving in the morning. So we get to the airport. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get home early. So I switched my flight to earlier, to 1 hour. They ended up switching their flight again. Unbeknownst to me. I had no idea. And I was like, oh, what's up? Oh, yeah, we do, we're switching, whatever. But then that's when I came back. And I'm like, real world, INF, Scorpio. Stick to your guns. Stick to your lone wolf. Right? Because you know these things. You know that as people, then we work so hard, that those type of folks, in particular, the closer that they get to arriving at their home, right, or their place of peace, the quicker that they're going to want to get there. So that whole thing of delayed, oh, I'm going to stay all night and rent rooms and we're going to go out and drink and party and have dinner and all this stuff, it wasn't going to happen. I know that those folks, it wasn't going to happen. I'm not particularly the type to do that, but I know those folks aren't really the type. So it was just like smoke and mirrors. It was preconditioned blur. But again, it goes back to my original context of knowing yourself, being at peace with yourself, not, swaying because others feel that, oh, that's the way to do things. That's the way that they operate. And you can actually tell how they're going to operate as well because you know people, you know folks, right? But still, it's not for them to tell you, oh, don't worry about it, let it go. No, that's how you process stuff. I'm going to internalize, I'm going to find the whys, I'm going to figure out why we're doing things. Then from there, I will get out of my space. That being said, though, you have to find the right people who are going to provide you that perspective, who are going to align you with the, yeah, it hurts, then to the, this is why it happened. Let's go deep. Let's really get to the depth, to the bottom of why people operate the way that they do in order for them to have done that. Then you say, okay, well, that is the kind of a person who would do that kind of stuff, right? And then from there, if that person doesn't, or even if yourself doesn't pull out of it, that's when you need someone to be like, all right, dude, all right, you went through all the stages now it's time to get up. Problem is that most people stay in this space because, and I would venture it's not necessarily because they feel comfort. Everyone feels comfort in their own space, right? So if you're here, you feel comfortable not dealing with emotions, you're going to be here. If you feel comfortable in emotions, you're going to be here. If you feel comfortable in always playing balance and never really sticking to a guns, then you're just going to be here. But at some point in time, you're going to have to elevate, right? You're going to have to decide, hey, let's push up. Let's move up. Let's remove ourselves from this and then be more at peace, be more internal, have that resolve and understand who you are, why you are, and the purpose you have on this earth. Johnny Fontana, Real World, INF, Scorpio, we out.